All right, we're back for more NHL Underdog Best Puck, going over some playoff data that I still haven't even seen. I was trying to get it to download, and then Matt gets on, and it's like, well, it's not. So it'll be my first look as well. So we're going to get right into it here on the Morning Skate Podcast. All right, we're back. Matt, make sure you're unmuted. Already 5 people jumped in immediately. Good times to get after the NHL streets while Underdog, of course, goes out and releases one more NFL contest. I had all the stuff ready. I was like, they're done. I saw the tweet. There's no more. We're finally over this NFL shit that I need to max enter because I'm a literal loser that can't help themselves. I don't think I'm going to enter this one, though. I really don't care about it, to be honest. Like, whatever. I don't know if you looked at it at all, but
I looked at it for a second, but I have no interest.
I think it's cool. Like, I get it. Oh, crap.
Yeah,
Yo, Joey out in Utica right now, I'll tell you, it's good food in Utica. If you have, like, I'm not a big vegetable eater, but Utica greens are the greatest side dish in the history of the world. So, if you ever heard
I was
of
up
them,
in I was
wait,
in Verona. Yeah, I was in Verona this weekend. I went up for a night. My dad went to see Barry Manilow. My dad's seen him, I think, 78 or 79 times in his life. An absolute madman. But yeah,
I truly like, can't talk any smack about it either because of like my stuff. Like I can't. It's just like it feels disingenuous for me to be like that's insane, but it is kind of crazy. But yeah, no, Utica probably the most underrated food city ever, maybe ever. Tomato pie is being mentioned, like, and people are like, "What's that?" Just go, just try it. Trust me. But we're not here to talk about Utica food, although very,
we're
very
not here
good.
to talk. Cool. All right, see ya.
We're here to, obviously a lot of best puck stuff coming. Contest is absolutely flying. I mean, I don't know what it was at this time last year. I was going to look into that soon. I don't think it's anywhere near where it's at right now. We're looking really, really good to fill early, and I love the sound of it because that can only mean one thing, that we get another contest, and I'm not sure what that would be. I ask them every day. I basically hint at it like every day in some capacity, like maybe another contest. That'd be fun. It is already a quarter full. And I've completely stopped drafting other than the streams since the first 50 I rattled off. And I mean, we're going to get into that quick conversation maybe, but first, we did put it on the thumbnail, but for me and Matt and any Sabres fans, it was obviously a really sad week. We don't want to, be too negative here or anything, but our condolences obviously to the Generette family and everyone affected, in Buffalo. I feel like anyone that grew up watching the Sabres had the same just like feeling of, I don't even know, like it just felt so terrible that to know that he's not going to be there to call a Stanley Cup final game, to know that it's not going to happen. But I mean, the memories that he gave us both, I'm sure, are like the reason we're here today talking. It's like he was our voice, and we would play the NHL video game, and I would be sitting there in my bedroom, like screaming RJ calls as I made the Sabres win the cup the only way that they could in a video game. So yeah, Matt, anything you wanted to say on that front before we get going?
Yeah, I mean, no, it's a very localized thing, obviously. But yeah, it was tough. It was a tough Friday, basically reliving your childhood through not only his calls from like the 06-07 teams that were sort of my introduction to like loving hockey in that way, but to the history and everything, because the Buffalo Sabres don't exist without Rick Jeanneret. So it's weird, but I just thought like listening back to the old clips and stuff, it's really fascinating how I could tell you who scored those goals based on the intonation and the lead up to the play. I can't picture JP Dumont scoring in Game 3 in overtime to beat the Senators, but I can hear JP Dumont, like that sort of intonation. I knew that was coming, and then I go to watch the clip on YouTube later, and I'm just like, don't remember this at all, but I know the sound. And you know, that sort of, I think, speaks to just the legend that he was. He sort of transcended the game of hockey for the city of Buffalo, and that's something that, you know, they'll be chasing forever. So yeah, it was really a special day, like on, you know, local sports media. I spent all day listening to the Buffalo sports station, and you know, so I had a great time. Honestly, like it sucks, but it was so cool to know that, you know, he basically got all the adulation that he deserved. And yeah, we can, you know, kind of move past that. But
Sure. Yeah, I don't want to spend all night on it. And so many people have done such an amazing job, and we're not going to get anywhere near as close as, you know, Doc Emmerich and those guys with the just amazing words they said. But I think when someone embodies a city like Buffalo the way he does, it really makes it that much more a person. And that's why it hits so hard for so many of us. It's like he was the face of the organization, which is weird to say for an announcer. But
yeah.
I think it speaks to like why we're here today. We just sort of like I grew up like literally wanting to call games. Like that was a thought I've had, and it's like, well, I'm not good at that. I can't do it. So we just got into something else. Matt, your last thing. I'm sorry.
Yeah, well, I think you started playing like during the lockout, right? You started when you were 8 or 9, like right before that team. That was like your, you know, like that was your launching point. I'm pretty sure, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, more probably, honestly. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
like, yeah, no, it's
All right.
super, it's crazy, but yeah, we'll get into it. So Matt, you want to share your screen, and we'll start. Oh no, do we want to do the quick conversation about the draft windows, which we're not probably going to be able to prove, or did you want to save that because we were going to work
I
on it more?
will. I'll touch on it. I think
Okay.
there's a lot more work to do there.
Yeah. Well, my thing, yeah. Let me just say my piece first, and then I'll let you either counter back to it and then say what you're going to say. So, with the conversation me and Matt were having, and that was what I thought we'd talk about mainly. But again, Matt thinks there could be more to dig up. Is that what I did last year, and I'm doing it this year, and I kind of touched on the beginning, is I drafted 50 teams from the word go. That window I kind of am calling the like completely inefficient ADP window when things are just insane, make no sense. A lot of guys, I mean, Philippe Forsberg starts at 91 ADP. You know, just an easy example that we keep bringing up. That kind of incredibly inefficient ADP window kind of evaporates after the first 50, 100 total lobbies that exist. And then you kind of get into a new window, which is a much more efficient window. I don't know what I'd call this window exactly. This is kind of the window I fade until things get ultra efficient. And then once they do, and I think we kind of reach that equilibrium, it's a lot easier to get the correlations you want because that's where ADP shifted towards. And as people come from NFL right over and they really don't know hockey, that's all their priors are. And as I stated last year and this year again, correlation isn't the biggest thing to me. So I'm kind of letting these people hoover up what I think is not positive expected value as far as maximizing massive correlations and taking kind of the, you know, value as we're calling it, and they're kind of taking that into account. So I think that this window strategy works for me, but does it actually matter at all? Or is this just a really good theory in my head that I did last year and I will say it worked? And are we even going to have the data to prove it does or doesn't? Because how do we say how good a drafter did later compared to early, also knowing that they were just different environments? So Matt,
all right.
I said a lot
So
there.
let's look at the, you know, let's look at the data behind that, because first, what we're adding today is basically playoff specific data. So last week we talked all about round 2, basically how do you get out of your regular season pod. That's, you know, how do you get out of round 1 by finishing in the top 3 of 12 last year? This year it's finishing in the top 2 of 12. But how do you go through a marathon of a season to be one of the top 2 teams? You know, we've talked about structure and everything else. When we're talking about the playoffs, though, the playoffs are 1-2 week, well, they're 2 1 week periods. So it's a lot different of a game because, you know, in that limited time frame, stacks can sort of, you know, come together and rise you to the top. You know, single players can outpace their competition by, you know, by literal multiples. It's not going to be McDavid scoring 900 and, you know, Ovechkin scoring 800. It could be McDavid scores 50 and Ovechkin scores 5 because he doesn't score, you know, whatever. So like they're just 2 different games entirely. And so to start the conversation, just sort of looking at the monthly drafts, you know, this is about the same structure as last year as far as distribution of drafts. There were about 20-ish% in August. And so we actually don't see a huge trend as far as advance rate once you got to the playoffs. So like DJ, if you're saying you're drafting super teams in the first, handful of drafts, maybe this is too wide of a window because you can see there's at least, 1,000 or so teams that are getting drafted. But you see a slightly better advancement rate to the finals, but a slightly lower advancement rate to the semifinals. And same deal in September, but the opposite, where slightly higher in round 3, slightly lower in round 4, and then slightly lower in round 3 in October, and slightly higher to the finals in October. So that's not to say that this is, like fact or whatever, but it does show that there's really not that much of a difference when you draft at a zoomed out level. You could do things more granular than this by looking at, the first 15 drafts or something crazy like that to see if there's really some value. But I think that's, pretty rife for, what if you're wrong on those values? Like I was on Taylor Hall and Anthony Mantha, like, it doesn't really, I don't think there's going to be a huge groundswell that changes that opinion. So I guess that goes to say, don't worry about when you're drafting. We'll do some more work. I've looked at all the other data too, but it's not really anything interesting there. Like the values and reaches, there's sort of the same pattern as last week. So go back and, review last week's work, but we're going to deal with the overall level right now while I zoom in on this work. So
if anyone has any questions, throw them in the chat, by the way. I mean, as we're kind of going, I think that made pretty clear sense that there really wasn't any difference and there might not be any questions because it was very obvious. But so, feel free.
Refresher, out of the first round, you're in a 12-team draft. 3 people advanced last year. This is 2 this year, so slightly different. I don't think there's enough of a difference. I think it's more about the expansiveness of a 35-week season or whatever the regular season is for Best Puck. It's more about, how do you survive the marathon and finish in the top X number of teams? I'm not changing anything because it's only 2 this year, though you could theoretically slice it down, to only top 2. I'm not doing that. Moving on to round 3, I think 2 out of 12. Yeah, 2 out of 12 advanced out of round 3. And then to get to the semifinals, there were 5 teams per pod. The winner of the 5-team group advanced to the finals. So that's sort of what we're dealing with at the overall level. So keep these sort of benchmarked as we're going through this data here. Why don't I freeze? So basically going over the same stuff as last year, or as last week. Again, review that. We'll talk all about the regular season in last week's episode if you missed it. And by the way, if you're on audio, feel free to check out DJ's YouTube channel. That is in the description of the podcast. So if you want to see the visuals, the tables. Starting off with a very basic structure question, we once again see that 4 centers, 6 wings is just not performing the way that these drafters expect it to. We talked all about that in the regular season. Those trends carry through to round 3 and to round 4. Something worth considering is that throughout this exercise, we see that Connor McDavid had just an absolutely obnoxious advance rate to round 3. He didn't do so hot in the semifinals, but to the in the quarterfinals to advance to the semifinals, it was the exact same sort of insanely good advancement rate. So keep that in mind when we're looking at structure. 4 center teams are less likely to have McDavid just because McDavid is so obviously good. People probably aren't trying to draft 4 with McDavid. But in any case, you still see that round 4, getting to the finals, still bad. It just isn't working the way that people expect it to. And there's more data to support that. Number of goalies doesn't really affect things. Obviously, small sample sizes when we see things like 50% and 60% and things like that. Defensemen, nothing really to talk about. You'll see some of the things that we repeated last week. That as you add centers, it's getting worse in aggregate. As you add wings, you are sort of reaching a point of, I don't know if there's enough sample to call this a point of diminishing returns when it's talking about, probably 8 teams here, one of them advancing to the finals. But you see the sweet spot within the finals itself, or within the semifinals, is 7, with some bounciness. You're just going to lose if you probably don't have at least 6. I think that's been made clear by this chart. Keep going again, the McDavid trends. Pasternak, he was pretty powerful down here. He wasn't quite as powerful in the playoffs. So, obviously some pastas would have made it through, but this is why we see this heightened amount in the bottom of the draft here. And that advantage dissipates pretty quickly. Interestingly, the McKinnons, the Matthews, the Dreisaitl's. I know DJ, your team was a Draisaitl team that won.
Yeah. I think the top 2 were both Draisaitl too. He just went absolutely insane, which makes sense because McDavid just wasn't as popular in the finals anyways, and Draisaitl I think did still outperform him.
Yeah. And so the trend isn't quite as clear when we're looking at value, sort of like versus ADP. Are you picking up a lot of value along the way while you're drafting? If so, your advancement rate gets much stronger as you add value, except to the point where you're probably an auto drafter, just taking the highest ADP, not considering positional considerations. That advantage kind of disappears in the playoffs. I think that makes a lot more sense because in the playoffs, you're basically flipping coins. If you're talking who's going to be better over the course of a 60-game regular season, okay, well, sure, I can probably tell you that McDavid's going to be the best and, whatever. I can rank order it, and I'll be much closer than if you asked me, okay, in these 4 games, who's going to be the best player? So I think that's what we're seeing here, where there's just not enough time for that advantage to play itself out. Relatively interesting that it seems like some teams that got a lot of value did advance to the finals. But again, I think this is just a really small sample size thing in that, I think optimizing for advancing to the playoffs is the best in any case. But just note that advantage pretty quickly fades away once the playoffs start. If you're trying to sell your action or anything like that, past results do not guarantee future success when it comes to the playoffs. Not really much to speak of drafting at ADP. And reaches, obviously the opposite trend as before, where if you're reaching a ton, you're not advancing a lot. You're also not getting to getting through the playoffs quite as much. Maybe these 2 outliers can, change someone's mind, but this seems strong enough to just, hey, don't reach 7+ times. That seems bad. If you can limit it to 3, that's probably the best. Interestingly, reaching not at all basically had pretty strong playoff success rate, but I don't think that's overly actionable. If things work out perfectly, then they work out perfectly, but odds are that's not going to happen in most of your drafts. 3-round starts. This is very, very McDavid driven. We talked about this last week. The center, the center D and whatever's center D wing, McDavid, Yossi, for example, just absolutely nuked. So I don't think there's much to learn from that. And quickly going through the center investments, this is very much skewed by McDavid, of course. Note that the minimum for being a high investment in center is about 940 points of ADP capital. McDavid alone is worth 633 by my estimation, the logarithmic equation we talked about last week that assigns every draft pick a value. So I think mostly throw these results in the trash because, hey, guess what? If you didn't get McDavid, you didn't do great. That's just what we learned, already. So wings, it's also a very similar story, I believe, to the McDavid-ness of it all. Where the first round wings just didn't really do so hot in the playoffs. It was McKinnon, Matthews, Draisaitl, McDavid. Defense, again, no real trend here besides maybe Roman Yossi influencing some things on the higher side. But he was out for the finals, as you know, DJ. So I don't know. There's only so much you can take away from this limited amount of data. And again, more sort of McDavid taking goalies at the 2-3 turn. I think that drives a lot of these results here too. What I wanted to talk about after quickly going through that was stacking, because you will see that as I go through these charts, there's not a ton of evidence that stacking was the cheat code to success in the playoffs. So here's what I mean. Again, last week we saw that basically it didn't matter how many players you stacked, including goalies. Once you factor goalies out of the equation, you see a little bit of, like, hey, the 7 mark, there's a 27% advance rate, kind of goes normally distributed on either side of that number. But once you get into the playoffs, it really, like, there's no significant positive trend. Um, so I found that really interesting. I kind of thought, just in general, stacking would be pretty strong within the playoffs. But maybe it's not the number of players stacked. Maybe it's something like power stacks, alpha stacks, top 5 round type stacks, where those players can really put you away and elevate you within the postseason for fantasy. I don't know. There's more work that needs to be done to sort of quantify the strength of a stack. Um, but again, when we filter things by just the sheer number of stacks instead of number of players that are stacked, there's a bit of a drop off after 3 stacks. I don't know if that's meaningful for the quarterfinals, and there's really no trend for getting through to the finals either. The one data point that I think you could point to say, like, hey, this is a good thing or a bad thing, are the 106 drafts that made it to the semifinals with a max stack size of 2. Meaning if they had X number of stacks, none of them were greater than a 2-person stack. Versus there were 97 folks that made it to round 4 and had a 3-man stack, at least 1 3-man stack, maybe 2. We saw their advancement rates to the finals be dramatically different. I've been racking my brain to try and figure out if 100 drafts is enough to sort of take that away as like, hey, stacking is good for advancing through the playoffs. Like that sort of the prior that I had. I'm not sure, though, that this is enough evidence to prove that. Maybe this is, again, just the McDavid ruined everything. Draisaitl ruined everything getting to round 4. And it was just hard to stack those guys because you didn't know, Evander Kane was a bust. Zach Hyman, I guess, was drafted, but maybe he wasn't being prioritized the way he was. Tyson Barrie was no longer on the team. So, like, maybe there's just an Edmonton skew to all of this. I'm not sure, but I found this really interesting because, I was just expecting to see the sort of positive trend. And you see it a little bit right here with this 12% and the 29%. But again, I'm just not sure that 100 drafts per size in the semifinals is enough to prove this point. So, and again, we see negative trends for number of 3+ stacks within round 3, slightly positive one within round 4 as well, but nothing really that I think is overly exciting to take away from things. And this is all the same stuff we reviewed last week. I don't think any of this is relevant. So DJ, I want to go back to the stacking because does this like tell you anything that you didn't already know? Are you seeing something that I'm not that's helping you sort of confirm that prior that we both shared, that like stacking is very powerful once you get to the playoffs?
Can I ask just one question to all this? Did you include goalie or no? Just wondering. Just want to kind of clarify
So
that.
this was not including goalie here. After.
Okay, I want to make sure.
Right. After this,
because
chart,
I mean,
I no longer would include
as I'm asking that, Wookie also, because Wookie asked at the same time too. Just because, I mean, my winning team didn't have a single 3-man stack other than a goalie that fit in with Jari, Rust, and Gensel. Not to say that obviously the one sample size is any better, but no, I think it makes enough sense. But I guess the best what I would say is like, I already am probably lower than most, which saying most in the NHL space is literally like saying, whatever, but I'm going too crazy with stacking. So to me, this is like, okay, good. Like I'm not going to change what I'm doing. Like I'm going to continue to do 2 3-man stacks, 2 or 3, I should say, man stacks and limit myself there because I think you get diminishing returns. A really good term you used earlier by adding that 4th, adding that 5th. I don't think it helps you as much as you'd think. So I guess it doesn't blow my mind, especially when you think like one player going absolutely insane is what you're looking for. They have 2 line mates. Will both of them correlate on the power play? I mean, I'd say in most examples, no. So unless you get that perfect 3, adding a 4th to that just kind of, again, it feels like you're limiting yourself. And as these contests get bigger over time and harder to advance in general, I don't think you're going to find a benefit to that situation where, like, in the finals, you have a 3-man stack that actually all score. Like, a 2-man stack makes a lot more sense to me. And maybe, you could have argued that, like, oh, yeah, so Gensel and Russ scored for you, DJ. Well, what about Crosby? Well, he's nowhere near Draisaitl anyways. Or I think whoever was my flex, it would have been close. Like, it could happen, right? Like, I'm not saying it couldn't, but now you're going to add a fourth player into that mix that's also going to score. It feels really thin, especially when we look at the playoff schedule, and that has a crazy good fight. Teams are playing the same amount of games. So I don't know where you're going to actually find yourself benefiting in the long run on that. And we have a lot of questions.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think, nothing here has shown me that more than a 3-person stack is very warranted. There's some situations where it's like after ADP, I'm very confident in the correlation because, something about hockey is there are strengths of correlation within teams. McDavid and Draisaitl are very correlated, but, there's no guarantee that McDavid and Nugent Hopkins are correlated. There's no guarantee that Darnell Nurse and Leon Draisaitl are correlated, just given the way that these players are deployed throughout the course of play. So there's very much, to me, sort of a lean against overstacking when I'm in drafts. But maybe there's more evidence even here to just show that, like, getting, your favorite players within various ADP bucket ranges, getting over on those players that you think have big years and big upside in certain weeks, maybe that's the way to approach hockey. More so than trying to guess which team blows up and which players, like get a bunch of past assists to one another, because ultimately you're looking for the goal scorers, you're looking for the big nights in terms of shots on goal and whatnot. So we'll see. There's a lot more work that can be done. This data has all been made available. There's there's the raw data for people that are more technically inclined than I am, to do Python and R and stuff. And I've made this sheet also available if you can think of ideas to build off of this to improve, the signal that we're getting out of what is admittedly a very noisy sample. So that's pretty much all I had.
Yeah, well,
do you want to just jump into a draft?
I'm going to rattle through some of the comments quick, though. Number one is from our boy.
Just a few minutes on the draft then. No. Let's do the comments first and then jump into a draft.
Okay, yeah. So first one, I'm trying to build the manifesto out into pieces for us. Like, it's not just going to be one. Sorry, I think something's glitching on the screen. But yeah, I'm not trying to do one. I'm going to do multiple articles to kind of break it up and make it a little bit easier. Talk luck. Number two, let's think about maybe last season. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. Again, it's like that's kind of why it's so important just to work on advancing. I think goalies are just so incredibly random, especially in the playoffs. When we get to April, like, some teams are just frankly not going to be playing for as much as others. They rest a goalie comparatively to others. Like, Boston should have rested Olmark more, and they didn't. We saw Colorado fighting for a playoff spot, and they play Georgiev every game. You never really know for sure what's going to come down the pipeline. So it's kind of one of those things where I think you spread the wealth at goalie, kind of like I do at quarterback. Where you remove the randomness of playoffs and look at spike week correlations.
Yeah, I don't have that data. I don't have week by week player level data to simulate things. I just don't have the technical capability to do that. I think that's a great idea, but yeah, that's never going to be something that I'm sharing. So take that ball and run with it. I'm open if you want feedback, but that's totally a great idea to not just worry about the playoff weeks, but look at what if this 4-week stretch for the playoffs? What if that 4-week stretch for the playoffs? So on and so forth.
Yeah. So yeah, this kind of leads us to the question of, do we try to stack our goalies and skaters? And I think it's like the biggest luxury thing in the world and never forced. Like, if you're, it's not like if I take Hellebuck on in briefly, but it's like if he continues to slip and I already have, it's like I wouldn't ever force it, because really, like, is it like how much, like, you think about DFS, like how often when you're trying to maximize the upside of a night, do you think I have to put my goalie with my skaters? Like, I don't think you really think that way. Often. Matt, am I saying anything wrong here?
No,
Or
I pretty much it's a luxury stacking. You know, I will try to target the goalie. Like I'll star the goalie if I know, oh, I have Ovechkin and John Carlson. Just like, okay, if the Capitals are better than expected this year, who's doing well? Probably the goalie along with
yeah,
your star players. But
yeah, yeah.
I'm
Really,
not reaching,
honestly,
you know, like
yeah, I think it's better, like you're saying though, if you're going to stack a team that's likely not going to make the playoffs, that goalie kind of gets more of a bump than if you're stacking, Colorado. It's like, oh yeah, first off, it's very difficult,
yeah,
but
if
you
you're
think like if a
taking
team just completely outperforms, yeah,
yeah, that's maybe a good point. If you're taking Igor, yeah, you're probably not betting on Panarin or Zibanejad in particular beating their ADP because you're just betting Igor's the most reliable goalie in the league. He's going to play a ton. He's going to be pretty good. The team's going to be all right. Like you don't need anything crazy to happen for that to be like a league-winning goalie selection. But odds are, if Darcy Kemper is going to be the guy you need for the season, Durkee's going to be on a better team than, the prognostications are for this year's Capitals, which is like a bubble playoff team, probably not making it. So, anything else that you wanted to pull up?
draft. A bunch of this stuff is about the Devils. Let's get into that while we
Yeah.
start the waiting for the. Yeah, it's like a bunch of
Okay.
Devils arguments. So I'm gonna click the doc. You ready?
All right, let's go.
3, 2, 1.
I'm in.
Yeah, 5
Five
more. Okay,
more.
someone said it was 11. Like, yeah. Okay, so yeah, the Devils will kind of get. No, honestly, I think that it's not even like they asked the question. I'm gonna pop up my screen. I just want to get Underdog. I want to get my exposures. Actually, I want to make an update one team. I don't even think I've drafted since. Yeah, it'd be one team. Whatever. I'll just get it. We have some time, but no, I think what the point to the Devils thing, because someone's like, I got like the that's Timo and Jack Hughes, and like you reach obviously reach for Timo, right? Which isn't probably as big of a reach as it seems, even though was it necessary? Probably not. I do think it kind of comes to the point of like getting unique correlations is something you might want to consider at times, especially when you're max entering. But I don't know. I'm very hesitant to do it. Matt, does that make sense? Like reaching to get a unique correlation that you can't otherwise get. Like I'm trying to think of even like another example.
Yeah,
Like
I
New
mean,
Jersey's a really good one. I don't know about
I
another.
would
Like I guess
rather
Crosby. I know that was what William mentioned once, but all
I
right,
would rather like the player than anything else. If it's
no
a John
way.
the 101, nice. What happened?
I got the
What's so
101.
funny?
I
Okay.
don't know. There's nothing funny about it. I'm not laughing at that.
Okay.
I'm laughing at a joke I think I heard a while ago. Yeah, that's really pull up the screen. You keep going. I'm sorry. Oh my god.
Well, at least we're at
The
opposite
rich
ends of
get
the
richer.
chair.
Oh, the rich get richer. It never stops. I don't want to stop. Why did it do this? Whatever. It looks fine. I'm on the clock. Boom down. God, that feels good. Such a fun click. I think is it 3 in a row actually? They're saying 2 weeks in a row. I think it's 3 weeks in a row.
I could not tell you. I remember last week, but
I can tell you. No, yeah, because this is the third time. Because I have because as a true professional, I don't just make thumbnails. I make post podcast thumbnails as a true professional. And
that
the
is
first
true.
one I did being a true professional was like Big David, I choose you. And then I did the influencer on stream 101 strikes back. So this is 3 in a row. This is actually 3 in a row. Yes.
Okay. Well, they're trying to talk you into like actually doing some drafts right now.
Oh crap. Yeah, I'm going. I mean, again, do my win. Like, we can say it's wrong. It doesn't work. I'm still doing it again. It's like almost just out of like respect for the process last year. Like to not do it again just feels kind of sacrilegious now. All right, let me see if I can get. I'm going to refresh my page really quick. I'm going to try to get the rankings up there because they should work now. I actually just have not done one since the rankings were put in. Does this look right? This doesn't look right at all. Kale McCarr 53. That looks really wrong.
That could be right. He's projecting. I mean,
Is it that low?
the comps for McCarr just played no games, so I'm not sure. Because I mean, last year would have been higher.
Oh yeah.
This year, I have no idea. You know, I don't
up.
necessarily agree with projecting McCarr to only play 60-something games, but you know that's what he does. So, who am I to
50 drafts
say
and
what's
hasn't
right or
gotten the
wong?
101.
Should you put
Aaron,
us on
buy a lottery
screen,
ticket right
TJ?
now.
Should you?
Good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hi.
Good to be on screen. Sorry, I'm just
Matt.
kind of.
Nice
trying
to meet you guys.
Did someone ask you to? Yeah, no, this is 3 in a row. People are saying 2 weeks in a row. You guys don't know my power. Are you on the clock yet? Oh, you picked.
I picked Kaprizov. I technically probably would take Kucherov there. Like I like Kucherov at 10, but I think I just have Kucherov slightly ahead of Robertson personally, so I'd want slightly more Kucherov. But yeah, I guess with the Kucherov discussion, we could talk about Brandon Hagel signing that massive contract. It's very much like the situation to me is very similar to the Tom Wilson discussion, where not that I think Tom Wilson's bad, or not that I think Brandon Hagel's bad, but just I don't know that contract guarantees anything for Brandon Hagel. There's that was Killorn's job net front for a lot of the year last year. They could opt for a bigger body than Brandon Hagel, who's not a big guy, net front. So yeah, it's good to see good players get paid, and Brandon Hagel's certainly good, but I'm not sure that changes his fantasy outlook to any massive degree. It's not like he was going to get traded at the deadline for Tampa. So
yeah, former Sabres prospect they let walk for absolutely nothing. The other note that I missed, I'm sorry, Mark, but I saw Blake Wheeler and I immediately looked away. Basically, it's a bit at this point. I think I've dropped his ADP just by saying I'm never going to take him once. Like I think other people are like, well, why? And it's like I'm not saying he's actually undraftable. Like that's probably not the case. You know what? Honestly,
he's undraftable.
I would say he's
Blake Wheeler.
Like, he's in the same category with all the other round 17 guys.
Vincent Trocheck is going to play
16,
on the top
16.
power play. Like I don't. Yeah. Why would that change? If it's not him, it's going to be Kakko or Lafreniere. They didn't sign Blake Wheeler's corpse to be power play 1 when Vinny Trocheck had an awesome year last year. Panarin wasn't great, but Vinny Trocheck, it was not his fault. Trocheck produced. So I'm not, you can project whatever you want. I just think that's wrong.
No, I mean, I will, unless if I fall asleep like a wheel, I will have 0. But this really does honestly speak a little bit more though to if you think you have an edge and you actually care about the information and you're watching these streams and all this stuff, waiting to that final window for your final 50 where we actually see practices and see preseason hockey games, which are like, the real players play together in one scrimmage and the not real players play in another one. Like we'll actually see all of this stuff in the last 50 windows or drafts that I'm going to do, which is what I did last year. And it's like, now I actually have a little bit more information to make it, a better decision. And ADP is going to shift from there, but or you were saying shit, I feel like. Did something happen? Or?
I drafted Tim Stützle. I mean, I didn't, I would have probably taken him looking at the board, but I just did not realize that I was on the clock. So, or maybe I did. And I was just looking at
really going honestly.
He is. I personally, I don't think I'll have a share of Timo in the second round. I love the player. I just don't know that you can carve out a role for him that's steadfast on a team with Dawson Mercer in the flank. Dougie and Luke Hughes, there's some question there, but I think there's an even bigger question of who goes with Jesper Bratt, who's the playmaker, Jack Hughes, who's the sort of Jack Hughes is the puck transporter, he's the superstar. Nico Hischier is very clearly the bumper, great there. You're talking one job for 2 really good players in Dawson Mercer and Timo Meier. Timo's going to have great rates. He's going to hit. He's probably going to score a bunch of goals. I just worry that there's a bit of a downside case where he's not locked into a top 6 top power play job. It's not likely, but I think it's very much possible. Whereas, Alex Ovechkin is always going to be who the power play runs through. Kyle Connor's always going to be who the power play runs through. Mitch Marner is going to be the staple of their power play. Tim Stützle, Cage, Nylander, all of these dudes are just going to be the guy. I'm not convinced Timo is going to be the guy, so I'm not investing like this in him.
Yeah, so we have the comment of the day so far here from GA. Turns on the stream. I get the 101, and he's just has to jam in the T-Log getting sniped for me, but I got him twice today. Just all of us, like the hot run that I'm on in drafting right now, it just keeps happening over and over again. I even got a couple of freaking Herbert stacks through. You want to talk about luck, boy. I did a Burrow triple today. It's not done yet. Burrow triple, by that I mean Mixon too. I did all of them. So we are just correlating to the nth degree in football right now, getting everything, and then we just get on the NHL stream, the 101.
It's DJ done talking about
like before these streams.
Football, I have him muted.
Football is the worst sport. Here's what I'd say though. Is it better than? Yeah. There's I don't mind watching. I like watching Red Zone. So it's hard for me to actually completely play into the bit all the time. Matt, you're on the clock, by the way.
Thank you.
But it's just imagine on Sunday at 5:00, just not turning over to the hockey. I just don't know why anyone would stick to the football at that point. Aren't your lineups dead? What else is there to watch?
What the hell am I missing? Where did all the goalies go, and how are there no ADP followers now that the goalies are gone? I'm like, did I redo my rankings or something? Interesting.
Ottinger kind of big goalie run there. So for the audio listeners, we haven't serviced at all, other than the fact that I got McDavid and that Matt made I guess not big mistake.
I can't.
But so far,
I can't in good consciousness. I think we have to retire the phrase "service the audio listener" because I saw a lot of audio listener getting serviced, if you know what I mean, on the old hub. An incredible feat of human engineering, by the way. Follow Pete, you'll see what I mean.
Oh, you're talking about the pornography video.
The adult video,
Is
yes.
that what you're talking about?
We don't talk about bad words on this stream.
That's a bad word.
I'm sure
he said on the hub, and I was like, what? I was like, what?
I'm sure something gets flagged.
Stream is called the hub.
Yeah. I'm sure some words get flagged. But something that would be flagged to say, hey, kids, don't watch this video.
Yeah, because a lot of juniors just where's the NHL best ball streams? He's just firing him up. Okay, no, yeah, okay. If you don't know what we're talking about at all, yeah, you're right. Go check out Pete's Twitter and or stream, and just know that I still don't think it really exists. I think it's made up, and that swears it isn't. Okay, best. He gets it. He gets it. Best Puck Brunch. I'm in. Okay, yeah, Barkov. I think Barkov is kind of an interesting case of when you go from last year he was going 12th overall. I think we've learned so much about the center position that we know it just was a bad idea regardless, and he underperformed. So, I'm not fading him, especially at his ADP, which is 56. That's fine, but he's probably more of a first center in for me in a wing heavy build, and something I'm taking when I have one of the first four.
Yeah, I'm happy to take Jack Eichel and Stamkos over him, just because Barkov has its games, but just in general, he's not a high floor sort of player. And I'm normally getting my build around center earlier than Barkov anyway, so it's sort of one of those dead zones that I don't really think Barkov can truly punish me. Even 2 years ago when that team was transcendent, he barely outperformed 2022. It was just sort of this team's continuing to be great and Barkov's going to be great. Now, injuries, of course, play a role, yada, yada. But there's just not a ton of peripherals with Barkov. So you're really betting on a top 5 NHL scoring season to punish you. which I don't really think that happens all too often. So I took Bedard. Mika and Bedard are two guys. If they're there after ADP, I'm basically trying to split those two for my first center. I just think those two guys are, we've talked about Bedard. We'll talk about Bedard, coming up as well. But I just think there's a pretty clear teardrop at center from those guys down to the Rubes, the Stamkos, Point, Hintz sort of tier, where I think those guys are creating their own offense more often than the other guys, just in terms of fantasy output. So there's my first center to go with Kaprizov, Stützle, and Philip Forsberg.
All right, not going to take much from me. Yeah, the rankings have completely changed. So if these were the original rankings, I'm going to have to message Brick and tell them that they're updated a lot.
Interesting.
Because,
pull up Scott's team.
Oh, yeah, no, I saw Scott's team. So Scott said he made a mistake. I don't believe him. I don't believe this is a mistake. Yeah. Pedersen, Pasternak, Hughes, and Vasilevsky. You got to get Quinn Hughes. Sorry for the audio listener that we're not servicing anymore. Okay, what's the draft caddy? I couldn't be more happy you asked. So the draft caddy works for every single sport. Give me 1 second here. Let me just try. I'm gonna try something quickly with the screen. I can do the entire screen. So this now should let me switch tabs. It does. Okay. So if you look here, if you can see this, I'm going to zoom in a little bit. Can we see okay? Hopefully we can. You can change the columns that will show up here. So I have the rankings and I have my exposures. And if you see this will expand, I can grab my exposures on the page for whatever sport I'm doing. This is through Brick 75.
Brick, BRIC. BRIC.
BRIC, yes, thank you. Go there, check it out. Let me pull it up. Yeah,
I didn't mean you. I meant the listener. Okay.
No. I'm just gonna put it in there. So yeah, you have to log in or sign up, and he has some free tools. This is not one of them. This is $24.99 a month or something for NFL, all that stuff. And then you can load your rankings in. So Puck Luck for hockey. I don't know all of these work anymore, but I know like Herzig and some of those are paid, and if you have to run the sims and whatnot, then you can pull it up. It works for. It's really nice for doing like grabbing the Underdog ADPs and going over to DraftKings and drafting over there if you think it's less efficient, etc. Just a home run tool, and it's also going to have the FS function and prop function, and I'm missing something else. Best ball. Oh, and you can do for NFL, and he's going to change this for hockey as well. He said, at least, you can do the auto drafter, the guide me tool, and it will try to help guide you to make picks that work for the settings that you set. So you can do hero, quarterback, zero, robust, whatever the settings are, and it'll suggest picks for you so you don't miss a spot like Scott. Anything to add, Matt?
No. Okay. It's fun. If you're meticulous about tracking stuff, you could track your stuff on your own, and like order things and whatever, but having everything in one place on the screen is pretty nice, and not having to switch between tabs and whatnot. So, that's what that is.
So anyone right now, it keeps zooming. Anyone right now that isn't subscribed to puckluck.com, just shut your eyes. You can't look at this, but here are the rankings really quick, just so you can see that they are very different, because I just wanted to double check. Kyle McCarr's 18 in our rankings here and not 56. So a lot of weird stuff, but yeah, so these, I'll get Brick to update it. I mean, I'll just hit him with them. I'm sure I'll just send it to him and I'll just put it in. Yeah, they're very different though. And these are downloadable if you are a subscriber at Puckluck, which again is going to have quite a bit of content. And I think a lot of people are going to be jumping into the mix that are like bigger names than me even, which is, I know what you're thinking, impossible. Matt, let's get back to the team.
Yeah, so definitely
just made his next selection.
If you believe that, the mega sharks are going to go drafting, once football ends, you should definitely wait to draft all your teams until these people are in the lobby. That's what DJ's telling you, by the way.
No, that's not what I'm saying at all, because I don't think they're that sharp. Because this is what happened last year, though. Exactly what I'm saying. They all overemphasized correlating all their pieces and drafting all the same team and not getting the best players and maximizing the value, which is my number one pillar. And that's how I win, maybe. Bring in the sharps that think they know everything. They don't. I know everything. I was good. Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I've got
Yeah, I'm gonna catch.
not worried about it. Okay.
I'm gonna catch the falling knife of Olmark. I don't think that's a great selection, but I want some of every starting goalie. And taking him, in this lobby where goalies were just absolutely ran on, I think that's fine. I don't love it. For example, I straight up prefer Samsonov and Demko, but just reaching to get those guys versus falling, Olmark at his ADP. I just think it works better for me in the long run to take Olmark there and just see what I can do. So I also took Bouchard. Thank you. Shout out to Jay for doing the Lord's work and putting out an anti-Evan Bouchard article. Don't know if you're the reason his ADP is falling, but absolutely love you for it. Regardless, I still think Evan Bouchard has clear top 2D upside. And there's very little reason to believe that Philip Broberg or Darnell Nurse is going to cut into that whatsoever. So
I'm excited to see how this works out, because I would love for you to write another piece back saying that he has number 2D potential, and then we just have this like takeoff. A takeoff.
I don't. There's nothing else you can do besides point at his playoff production, and say, look, this is what's more likely than his season long from last year. Like I don't know what else to do to make that argument. So I'm not building a season long projection system just to put Bouchard, top 20 or whatever. So I get it, but I've made the argument enough times to where I'm not sure what more I can do.
I think I'm going to take Demko for sure. And I know Stuart Skinner's right there, but I'm going to do the Demko thing. I don't really care. I think Skinner losing some. I think Demko's the better play overall. Man,
I will be right back.
Okay, I'm gonna grab Miro. No problem. Yeah, mute yourself. So yeah, I'm gonna go with Miro and Demko, which doesn't correlate to anything. Miro falling an unbelievable amount to 73. I think it's just too good to pass up. Very hard to get in a McDavid build when you think his ADP is around the 60 mark. Like, when is he gonna slip 12 spots? It's not gonna happen very often. So it kind of gives me a unique correlation, and a guy that's clearly a catalyst for that offense. Power play one. If Pavelski takes a step back even and another guy jumps in, that's fine. I have Miro to correlate with a bunch of my pieces. I could have taken Nugent Hopkins, who we have very high in our ratings, and I still think in our rankings he's pretty high. So we have the rankings before, as Matt alluded to, we're not really capturing as much upside as we wanted, because it was kind of factoring in some injury stuff, which, while the math was behind, it's kind of hard for us. And like our argument was, well, it's not really important for best ball, where we're not focused on a guy that might get injured. Like, oh, okay, he gets injured, like he loses time. Like, we're focused on the upside regardless. So
I mean, that was literally the Erik Karlsson play from last year. That was Erik Karlsson last year.
Exactly.
It was okay, but he's going to get injured.
Yeah.
And then it's like, okay, but what if he doesn't? And so sometimes you get that right, sometimes you don't. But CMC, that's been in football for years.
I'm just looking through. Vanderkate's at 55, and the rankings here is like 162 or something. So yeah, something's up. I'll get that remediated. No one said anything yet, so I don't think a lot of people have been jamming these rankings in too much, or maybe they're just going back and forth. You can easily download them, or you can just Control F and say, where is, I don't know, freaking Pavelski, and
this is
there he is, 119. Like, where does he fit? Or whatever. So you can pay us, you can pay Brick. I really don't care either way. I should care a lot. I do care. You should. The thing is like, once we get into the betting stuff, it's just going to be so obvious that you should subscribe that it doesn't matter.
Yeah, I'm just taking Markstrom out of the bunch here. Obviously, a lot of center values have fallen. I'm keeping a close eye on that with my Connor Bedard. I do want to insulate him with a strong center, but I'm not sure that any of these guys are guys I'm willing to invest right now when I think I need to grab another goalie with just Olmark. I'm afraid I'm going to lose out on starts to a lot of the star goalies. So if Boston's not world beating, which they're probably not going to be, I'm going to need another goalie to just get a bunch of starts. And I think out of Vanacek, Bobrovsky, and Markstrom, that's slightly more likely to be Markstrom. But, it's tough. There's not a bunch of great options, obviously, once the top 10 or 15 are off the board.
Yeah. Craig was asking about who is. I don't recognize Ace Elliott at all. I mean, maybe he's watching this right now, but I don't recognize him.
I've seen AC Elliott in a lot of drafts, but I don't know who specifically that is. No.
I definitely know Leylak UF. He's here. Yeah. I was gonna say he's always. I think he's normally here. Guessing you probably. Let's take a look. Oh, I just took your Miro probably. I like Miro. I don't think I've drafted him once though. I think it's my first Miro draft at 53, and I love that guy. What?
I was very confused. I'm like, why did you think I was taking Miro? But okay.
No, I already took him. Yeah, I took him. While you were gone, I was kind of talking about the fact that getting a McDavid Miro team feels unique because he's in the exact spot where you probably wouldn't reach for him, but you're also not going to get him. So I might as well have it here. We're getting down to the 8-9 turn. It's a very typical winger run draft. I was hoping Nugent Hopkins would get back to me at 96, but alas, someone could not wait on that for me, which is very justifiable. It was getting pretty egregious. We're running out of wingers, that's for sure.
Yes, we are.
Yeah, it is funny how even I've seen other people kind of get check out the best puck stuff that are, I don't know, either they have a name or they're a bit sharper and they're checking it out, and even names that they've mentioned I've seen, it's they're all centers because they're how is this guy going so late? But I think once you get into the draft and you kind of get into the math, you're I guess this is where Jordy Kyrou is going to go, right? He's just going to be a 95, which is crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Man, I've been set up with a unique situation to take. Okay, no, sorry, what? I'm gonna do the Ottawa thing. I'm gonna do the Batherson Giroux, which kind of feels like I'm taking Ottawa power play too.
Yeah, you gotta invest top 10 picks and top 10 round picks and getting the power play 2 for a non-playoff team.
Dude, wingers are gone.
I understand. Gone. I get it.
There's nothing left. Look at it.
I get it.
Look at
it. I want you.
One of those guys is probably on the top power play. I want you to look at it. They're gone. The wingers have left the building. We're down to drafting guys like Tushkin, who are maybe better than Giroux, but I think I could argue Batherson is there.
Yeah,
I could have had a stronger take. I can't do Kuzmenko again. I can't take him in the 9th round. He shouldn't be there. And I love the guy. And I drafted every one of my first drafts. Kuzmenko, round 16, round 15, round 14. They're reaching the boiling point. And I did it last time, and I just can't do it again. And yes, we should clip that. That would be good content. Am I going to go back and do it? I probably won't. But maybe. Maybe it'd be a good thing to put with my post-draft thumbnail, which all the kids are doing now. I mean, so now who would
I don't think I've ever been told.
What?
Yeah, I think it's. I just think those guys you can replace with perfectly fine options 3 rounds later that look exactly the same.
I just didn't want to take anything else.
I get it. I get it. It's a tricky. It's a tricky tightrope.
I just like having a nice couple 2-man stacks. Yeah, I mean, you're right. Your Jushkin probably is power play 1. Is I could have just jumped up and grabbed him. Derek, he's power play 1. It's just I think Ottawa is so incredibly explosive that it's just hard for me to.
Yeah, you could tell me, straight up Nichushkin or Giroux, and I would definitely say Nichushkin for 9 times out of 10. But all right, I set up my Bushnevich ahead of EDP, knowing that Kyrou was going to be there on the rep. So I'll take my Kyrou Bushnevich. Honestly, not a stack I get a ton of. I take those guys usually just as one-offs. So I'm kind of excited to get the 2 guys on St. Louis that are actually fantasy relevant alongside alongside Robert Thomas, who's very, very good but not fantasy relevant. And see see what
Can
I
I
can
ask
do
you,
there. So.
is Torrey Krug officially dead? Are we over it, or are you gonna try to bring it back?
I haven't taken any. I'm a little worried that he's sort of run out his welcome with the organization. So if I see him getting power play 1 regularly in the preseason, I'll happily get some round 16 Torrey Krug. But for now, I'm taking Justin Falk or basically no one from. When I take Verona, the Verona Falk is a very comfy mini stack late in drafts that I tend to take. I'm probably not going to overstack St. Louis by any means here. But Verona is a guy who clearly has ceiling in that round, round 15 or 16 where he's going. So
yeah. No, there's a lot of guys I probably could have, but you know what? Batherson, Giroux, I'm probably gonna do that one total time where I just grab those guys out of turn. Batherson slipped quite a bit after ADP, 83.9 now. Holy shit. That's a word you shouldn't use on a stream if you're trying not to. That's a real swear. 83.9. That doesn't seem right. 90.
All right,
I get him at 96. So you know what? Yeah. What?
I will happily take Troy Terry.
Yeah.
Setting me up for an Anaheim stack in the last round if I want. I feel pretty good about taking Gibson on like a Terry team. Just like, okay, what if Anaheim's actually competitive? That's probably on the back of Troy Terry being very good and John Gibson winning hockey games. So like I get that correlation more than I would say like the Minnesota stuff or other teams that we sort of mentioned off the top. Where if you're taking Igor, are you really betting on the Rangers to smash your ADP? Probably not. So yeah, that's just at ADP for Troy Terry. I'm very happy to do that, even though I really didn't want to take a wing. It just sort of fell onto my lap. So
yeah, no, I that's a guy I love in that spot. And honestly, I could have just gone like your Tushin and Terry, and I'd probably feel better about this team as
Agreed.
like. But then again, I took the value. I correlated that value. I find that interesting.
Yep.
This is me. I'm trying to build out 2-man sacks. Like maybe you've noticed, it's not that I was given a mission, but I'm really trying to build out 2-man sacks as much as possible here.
I can't even see your roster. It's too small.
McDavid, McDavid with Evander Kane, Caulfield no one, Gensel no one, Batherson, Giroux so far. So I have 2-man sacks, and then I have other things that are not stacked quite yet.
Yeah.
Will they be is the question. We're gonna find out very shortly, potentially. I can tell you. Yes, Wookie takes Nurse. I wasn't gonna take Nurse. tell you that for free.
Boy,
is
DJ sweating the Evgeny Malkin, Jake Gensel, no 5-on-5 correlation. Is he doing it?
I mean, like,
is he gonna do it?
I'm gonna do it, but I'm not. But I'm not sweating it as the 5-on-5 correlation. It's power play, baby. You know it.
Yep. Nope, you're totally right. That's an instance though where that to me is a weak correlation where I'm not going, above and beyond to stack Jake Gensel specifically with Malkin, even though I love Malkin at ADP. But I will reach around if I guess it works. Well, okay, if I have Erik Karlsson, I guess I'll reach around to get Malkin. You're right.
Okay, so
right.
we did get
I screwed up. I screwed up there. We're gonna get tagged as a porno video anyway, so it is what it is. All right. But yeah, me, Erik Karlsson, Chris Letang plays at 5-on-5 with Sidney Crosby at home. They tend to play together on the road as well. It just happens to be the way Mike Sullivan deploys his players. My guess is that Erik Karlsson and Evgeny Malkin, if you ran 1,000 simulations of this season, are far more correlated to one another than, Evgeny Malkin and Chris Letang, for instance. Now there could be power play considerations and whatnot. And I do get that. But that's just sort of the idea of knowing that there's weak and strong correlations within hockey that I think is useful to me. Now, is it useful in aggregate? I'm not sure. But that's just how I like to build. So, that's something I think about a lot while I'm drafting.
Okay.
All right,
Okay,
you
so
took
first
Shea
off, we have a
Theodore.
few comments. Very good stuff. Okay, yeah, we're gonna get back to it. We'll get back to it. Let's get through the comments first. My team is perfect. Don't worry. So first off, the Kuzmenko thing. As I was talking about him, someone said that he shoots 35% again. That is like literally what he has to do. Probably. I don't want to say to reach the round he's going in at this point, but like, man, is he going to score 40 again? Feels a little bit thin. Yeah, but Scott mentions the Larkin drop. I was getting kind of to the point where I was like, maybe I just do it. He dropped all the way to 113, which again, I think he's very tethered to some of the players that go earlier, like DeBrincat and Cider.
Yeah.
That people kind of just jump on him earlier because he's there to start. Oops, I'm doing the wrong thing right now.
Yeah, I mean, we saw.
Yeah,
We saw. Look at M. Jacobs' team. He grabs DeBrincat amidst the wing avalanche and gets the falling Larkin. Excuse me. So yeah, that's just a way that you can use the room you're in to build, these sort of super teams that you're not able to build, when there's more 4 centers in the first 6 round type teams being built, that has a different texture than a lot of other teams. When you're in a room like this. So very, very interesting, well done to M. Jacobs, even if it's, early investment in center, getting 3 already, the value there, I think, sort of offsets that a little bit. All right.
Sure. Harvey Bernard actually is an interesting name, though. I don't think he's quite draftable in this format, but is he a winger? I mean, is he? Let me just look.
He is.
I think he's a center.
Yeah,
he is.
He is. I think you have. Yeah, I think he's. He's a guy you look at. I posted the Micah thing for Harvey Bernard in the Discord the other day, and was just like, "Yep, I think we got to consider this guy." So, all right.
You're on the clock if you're making sure.
Yeah. Chris Letang, 20 spots after ADP. I only have 1 defenseman. I'm happy to take Trouba or Dobson there, but honestly, I like Chris Letang a lot too. I am not convinced that he plays in the top power play with Erik Karlsson. I think that would be bad for Pittsburgh to do it, but I do think they'll at least try it. So, I'm sort of separating what I think will work versus what I think will happen. To take Chris Letang when he falls like this with, no one stacked. I don't really see a problem in that. He's just a decent player. And
so yeah, next comment. Joey's going to a game. Have you ever gone to a game in Nashville, Matt? Because I know our buddy Zach went to a game in Nashville and he said it was like
I went to the game.
I
went to the game with him. Yeah.
Oh, you were there. Okay. He was telling me stories. I'm like, that sounds electric. Oh, you were there. Okay. I did not go.
Yeah. DJ, you'll never guess this, but we went out on Broadway afterward, and he wandered away. You'll never guess that.
That's very unlike him for us to lose him. I think I've convinced him to buy an Apple Watch with like the service always turned on, so then we can track him on his watch because his phone will die for sure, but hopefully the watch won't. He's a bit of a wanderer. On Nashville Broadway too. That's classic. This
all right.
This is a good time. I wanted to go to Nashville, but I just haven't found it yet. I don't know. I like country music enough to where I'm sure I would have fun, and a lot of like the older style country I'm sure still exists there, but I just haven't pulled the trigger. I'm making my voyage second home game of the year for Seattle. I'll be in the whatever that arena, Climate Pledge Arena, whatever that is called. Yeah, I'll be there for the Hurricanes. So I'm really excited for that.
I am going to cap things off at defense with Chychrun and Stützle.
Sure.
Sure.
Yeah,
that's.
I'm up in 6 picks.
I've missed every goalie I'm considering, so I will just take a guy in round 16 now, which is a lot of fun. The goalies just went so early in this draft, and picking at a turn, I didn't have the chance to get this Gibson, Hart, Binnington, Grubauer range, where I was perfectly happy to take Gibson or Binnington, but it didn't work out because they went ahead of ADP. So
we're gonna play a game after this. So while you were doing the data, and I'm pretty sure. I'm almost positive, but when we started this, I only had 2 teams on the clock for my X number of slow drafts I have going right now. I want to play how many slow drafts will I have on the clock for only on Underdog by the time the stream ends or by the time the draft ends. So from the draft start, there was 2. I'm pretty sure it was 2. It may have been 3, but I think it was 2.
I think you have like 100 something open, so I'm gonna guess at least 25.
Okay, we're gonna see. I don't think it's gonna
All
be
right.
that high though. I'm gonna let you know. Okay.
It
Ooh.
sounds miserable regardless.
Oh, it's not joyous at all. I have no fun. It was a big mistake, but when it's done, I'm gonna be happy. So okay, on the clock right now myself. I do think I'm gonna take my first Mark Stone share. Don't love it. Haven't done it yet though, and I just think that at this point, I'm going to get the correlation with Theodore. I'm going to hope that he plays a full season. And even though I don't think the upside is incredibly high, I do think he at least is going to produce points on a team that desperately needs more goal scoring. And I haven't taken him once to this point because he just normally goes a bit earlier. My next pick, I'd like to round out goalie, but there's really nothing left. So I think I'm going to just stick to winger again. Could take Joe Pavelski too for the correlation, but nah, I'm gonna take Besser. I'm gonna just go get the 7th winger out of the way. 2-7-2-2 build, but I have McDavid and my 2 goalies right now are Sorokin and Demko, so I don't feel bad about it at all. And I have some ideas.
Okay, you've been sharing this comment for like 8 minutes.
Whoops. Yeah. The question is that go.
Jonathan Drouin has never shown anything at the NHL level to indicate that he is a worthwhile fantasy asset. So there's a lot of projection in taking him whatsoever. You're taking guys from from real teams with real roles. You're taking Drouin over them off of a projection that he, 1, plays in the top 6, and 2, produces well, and 3, not only produces well in terms of the assist numbers he puts up, but that he gets enough shots, hits, blocks, and goals to actually score a bunch of points in the scoring system. So I think it's pretty bad. I think it's more likely that Ryan Johansson is a useful fantasy option because I just think there's a clearer path to him being on the top power play this season. And, that's just wildly thin because, I think it'll be Lehkonen, Nichushkin, Rantanen, McKinnon, Makar, assuming all healthy a lot of the time. But even beyond that, I don't think Drouin's the next man in. I think it's Johansson. So, yeah, it's a no for me on Drouin. But, if you're looking at prospect profiling from 8 years ago, then for sure, I can see where you're getting that. I just think there's too much NHL sample to make that huge reach as far as his shot rate and hits, blocks, whatever those rates he's put up are just not worthy in this small of a format when we draft 16 players.
Feels like the poorest man's version. Honestly, though, is he just Blake Wheeler? Maybe.
I think Blake Wheeler. There's something for Blake Wheeler to rediscover as far as his form. Like Blake Wheeler in his prime was a very good fantasy player.
Yeah.
He was Artemi Panarin. He was Artemi Panarin who took low danger shots. So he racked up, some shot numbers with Blake Wheeler, and he was a great passer. But there's just no reason to think that his game is, still all there. Oh shit, I've not thought about this pick at all.
You think? I did Max Puppy 3, and I did 121 slow drafts to get there, which was fun. This is a good idea for sure. Big stream on 9/8. Which would be September 8th is the end of bulk as the 7th is the first NFL game, so there'd be nothing left. I don't think on a Friday though. Actually, let me think about this in general. That day seems like I don't think I'm even going to be in Buffalo that day. So probably that Tuesday though. One thing I started to do last year, but that was because I was worried about this filling, was try to schedule times where we could fill a bunch of lobbies. I'm probably just going to do that again anyways if people want, because people seem to appreciate it. Just being like, okay, at this time, I know other people are going to be drafting and I'm not going to be waiting for a room to fill. So I'll probably just do that again regardless because it was successful.
We'll see. Weekdays are obviously easier than weekends to plan things. So,
I mean, I'd be happy to get a guest on too. I don't know. It just kind of feels like unnecessary right now, at least, to even ask anyone. But I mean, Jay's mentioned trying to come on at some point too. We'll have, and we'll do Saturday shows again for sure. One thing that I could probably tease at this point, and I'm assuming all of this should be free. If it's not, I'll try to make sure that at least it's It should be. I can't imagine it won't be. I'm going to be doing team previews for every single team in the NHL, like short 5-minute videos. So get ready for that as well. I assume that's more of a marketing tool than a paywall tool, but I'll go over that with him. It seemed to me like an idea to maybe introduce some new members that might be help contributing over at Puck Luck, plus having, like I said, kind of an avenue for me to just rant on teams that, the Anaheim Ducks, for example, kind of give some fantasy thoughts and some DFS thoughts and stuff like that before me and Matt kind of do our shows overviewing the entire season. So look out for that as well. Matt, anything right now?
I think naming a couple of guys left on the board that can smash ADP. Not sure if we should do that, given we have 2 pick players that we think will smash ADP or that we're betting will do so. But at the end of the draft, we can talk about the players that are picked late. Like, we're gonna do more of like the breakout prospect type stuff in coming weeks. We've really focused on just like the structure for now. It's just something where a lot of the prospect type stuff does depend on training camps and whatnot. So there's guys that I like want to be early on, but it's very rare that there's a Connor Bedard where they're just going to be instantly fantasy relevant. And, that's if you buy the Bedard narratives and stuff. But like, there's just dudes that like, if they play and if they play in premium roles, like we project them to be fantasy monsters. Brant Clark is one of them in LA, but there's just no guarantee that he plays a noteworthy role at this point. So I don't really know how to have that conversation besides like, hey, look at the bad teams. San Jose, Anaheim, Montreal, you could argue, has a couple guys that go super late. The bad teams, the best players on those teams, I think are better selections than the 8th, 9th, 10th best players on other teams. Like, that's my rule of thumb. But, it's obviously a player-by-player, case-by-case basis.
Okay, I'm going to close out some of my wonderful, wonderful stacks by getting Joe Pavelski, 40 picks after ADP? Just a swift 40 picks after ADP. With Miro Heiskanen, I got almost 20 picks after ADP. And I'm going to grab Mike Matheson a little bit early. I'm going to jump up. Doesn't really matter in the 15th round if you're kind of doing that. So Heiskanen, Theodore, Mike Matheson to go with Cole Caulfield, Joe Pavelski, and Mark Stone. So yeah, I ended up getting almost every player correlated at least once. I think, except for Brock Besser, who I correlated with the goalie. There you go.
That goalie fifth wing correlation.
The one that the kids didn't want me to know about.
Consigliere, where I'm feuding with the Badge Bros. They proclaim DJ as the NHL GOAT. There will be no further comment on this matter. But if you want to know the single reason I'm getting 150 drafts this year, that was bulletin board material. Absolutely. So it's time to come to this lobby and take it over. So,
oh boy.
All right. One of the Calgary options I was going to pair with Lindholm went away. So I'm just going to, I don't know. Maybe I'll just panic and take someone else instead.
Yeah. You guys, NFL, NHL Future Show. I mean, a lot of the player future stuff I can't get in New York, which is frustrating to try to figure out. But we'll more or less cover it when we're covering. I mean, let me talk to Jay first off, because maybe that'll be more of a me and Jay thing to do. I don't think Matt really. Do you care about that stuff at all? I mean, I don't want
to. I do. Like, I have thoughts, but I don't know that I have. I don't know that I have like a rake beating, mindset there. So I like on Underdog when they're listing players that are like correlated and stuff. You can take like guys from the same team. Like, that was pretty cool. And they basically just copy pasted the DK lines. So I would, look at that if you're interested in doing that stuff, see if there's correlations that make sense. Like, I know Larkin and DeBrincat were both listed. Like, clearly, if as one goes, the other goes. There's no guarantee, of course, but there's just correlation in your favor. All right. I didn't really want to do this, but I honestly have too much Matt Coronado. I have like 3 shares of him already, and I don't think the correlation is strong enough with Markstrom and Lindholm to really matter. So I'm just going to take Jake Vrana. I don't love stacking Kyrou, Bushnevich, and Jacob Vrana, but there's a there's at least an outside chance that those are the three puck touchers on the power play with Justin Falk and Robert Thomas. I think Braden Shen could certainly be a part of that mix too, but or Kevin Hayes even, who knows. But it's at least correlated, wing to center. So I'm not using two spots if say Bushnevich is hurt. If they smash, I'm still a little protected there. So just Jacob Vrana, I think, has far more upside than most of these guys left on the board still. And I'd rather get correlation than take a naked Tolvanen or Kaliev. Well, I guess I took Bjorkstrand, but more in the last round, I want something correlating to a center or a D. Because if my last two wings are scoring in a week, I'm probably screwed anyway.
Okay, yeah, a lot of good stuff there. So I'll talk to the Badge Bros. I'm sure they'll probably reach out as well. They're going to be without baseball too, almost entirely at that point. No, I mean they're playoffs, right? That'll be like the start of playoffs. They might really be looking. Yeah. Wait, what?
They'll be like midday baseball when the playoffs start.
Yeah, maybe they won't care. That's fine. I don't really, whatever. I try not to, there was like one time where I was like, this might be worth doing because the NHL slate or whatever. And like, other than that, they normally just reach out when they want to do stuff, but they're the best. I mean, honestly, like it's one of those things where it, like when they started it, I was like, this is a good idea, but it really is just like, as all this stuff grows, it's really quite helpful. So I don't think it's going to be much of a shock here. I'm going to end with Akira Schmid, who is kind of my favorite guy when I miss all of the goaltenders, just to grab. I just says that like, what if Vanacek does suck and I actually get a starting goalie? We talked about it before. That is, that's a guy. I think Lucas Reichel also has mentioned here at the end. I think he's going to start to get a bit more steam just on the principle of like everyone seemingly is projecting him to play with Bedard, which I would say I agree with. I'm not disagreeing with it, but as more and more of that comes out and more Bedard hype gets here, preseason, etc., I do think people are going to maybe jump up a little bit higher to take a guy like him who actually has the prospect pedigree. But we're going to get into all the prospect stuff next show for sure. Puck Luck has some other people that are working on prospect stuff. I was going to reach out to that guy, see what he has as well. Just kind of, hey, you want to, we'll be happy to kind of go over some of that stuff and whatnot as well. So yeah, prospects next time for sure. We'll be a lot more probably player takey. I mean, we might even be able to do 2 drafts next time. Yeah, it is. And the NFL pisses me off because they're literally like immediately gonna like week 1. You already dead? Here's a new contest, and I'm just gonna throw my mouse at the wall and be like, "Give me a week. Give me 2 weeks." Matt.
That's right.
Anything over?
Yeah, that way.
Yeah. Let me pull up the board. Let's pull up the board.
If you is it true if you go to the Okay.
Yeah. I think that's as big as she goes. Although I think I'm missing one person, but we'll get to them. Okay, so my team, and I minimize that. Wait, what?
I said yes. You were missing one team.
Yeah. So my team, 101, Connor McDavid. I mean, there's no other way I can recall. Ilya Sorokin is my second round pick. Jake Gensel, Evander Kane, Cole Caulfield, Patrick Demko, Miro Heiskanen, Drake Batherson, Claude Giroux, Evgeny Malkin, Shea Theodore, Mark Stone, first timer for a lot of these guys, actually, a lot of first times here. I think, let me go back from the start here. My first Miro, which is not on purpose, just have not got it. I every time I want him, I can't get him. Every time I get him, I don't want him. So first time taking Miro, first time taking Mark Stone, way after ADP, first time taking Joe Pavelski, way after ADP. Mike Matheson and Akira Schmid. So a 2-2-2-2-2 build. The only completely uncorrelated pieces are 2 goaltenders. So, and Brock Lesnar, who is correlated with the goalie, but like we said, it doesn't matter. Number 2, friend of the show, Paul, who's probably not listening and probably yelling at us in our fantasy group chat. Austin Matthews, Nylander, nice correlation. Georgiev, Fiala, he's a big Fiala guy. Steve Stamkos, Jonathan Huberdeau, 71, what a nerd. Tyler Toffoli to correlate with someone? No, not really, but it's fine. Sergachev, Morrissey, Aiden Hill, John Gibson. So rounds out his goaltending pretty early. I don't mind that. Lucas Raymond, Ryan Hartman, rest in peace, Drew Doughty, Nazem Kadri, and a guy that I know we actually talked about. I actually talked about this with him. I think you were in that talking about it too. Arthur Kaliev, the guy that I think is a nice sneaky guy that we're going to talk about next time to kind of round out your team in the last round if you so need a winger. NHL Wookie, friend of the show, creator of many useful things. But Matt, anything you want to say on Paul's team before we move on?
I guess we were talking about like Timo earlier. I didn't even mention Tyler Toffoli. That slipped my mind talking about the top power play. So you're talking, Hughes, Heischer, Dougie are pretty locked in with Luke Hughes potentially taking Dougie. You're talking Heischer is almost certainly locked in. He takes the draws, et cetera, et cetera. You're talking one spot for Timo, Jesper Bratt, and Dawson Mercer and Tyler Toffoli. Like it's really tough to get me to believe that there's that high of a certainty that Timo's the guy to pay off that ADP. So that's just seeing Tyler Toffoli actually surprised me. And then I realized, I said something earlier that sounded really stupid because I said Dawson Mercer before I said Tyler Toffoli.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I think we'll finish the show with Jeff's question as well. But yeah, let's get to Wookie's team. Leon Draisaitl, Roman Josi, love it. Zach Hyman gets the correlation, totally fine. I didn't want it. Panarin, Jeff Skinner, Ilya Samsonov, which is his first goalie, but I think that's fine. Travis Konechny, Darcy Kemper jumps up a little bit to get him, but at that point, I think he kind of, you didn't want to get too buried in the Avalanche. Taylor Hall, a little bit early, didn't get Bedard, so alas. Darnell Nurse, Carter Hart, Seth Jones, so there's a correlation. Riley Smith, Sam Reinhart, Trocheck, and Forrester. So you went Draisaitl and then waited on center until the final 3 rounds. I mean, personally, I think Forrester is a good AV player, but I feel like at center, it was just so much still on the board. I'm just never going to take him myself. Yeah. I get it. Like I think he's fine, but
yeah, and Forrester doesn't play center, so like when you're talking about Tippett and Konechny, you're threading a lot of needles to correlate him with those two. Obviously, there could be a power play job carved out, but if you're looking at center wing, like it's a little bit thinner than I think other late round centers stacking with wings. But hey, he showed up really hot in late season last year, so he could carry that forward. He's a guy we'll talk about for sure.
Yeah, so I like Kitties. I really, really like the start. McKinnon, Connor, Hellebuck, Keller, Zibanejad. Hold on, I'm sorry. I'm just trying to find. Where did Boldy go? Why does it not see him for some reason? Did he go early?
He probably went at the 2-3 turn.
I feel like I'm blind.
There's a spot to the right.
Oh my God! Yep, there he is.
Or sorry, the 4-5 turn, but yeah.
Yeah, the 4-5 turn. I was like, how did he not? I was like, where did he? Okay, yeah, Keller, Zibanejad, Ehlers. So Ehlers, some correlation obviously with Ehlers, Connor maybe. Hopefully, I guess. Stewart Skinner and Hellebuck, really good goalie start. Ben jumped on defense. Brandon Montour, Mirtushkin, McAvoy, Binnington, Dobson, Duclair, Cousins, Bavillier, and Barzal. I mean, yeah, there's really hard to argue with any of those picks. Matt Barzal at full health is just an electric player, so I definitely get it. But I think I just I don't know. It's hard though because Dylan Cousins was so far after ADP. I don't know, whatever. It kind of felt like a luxury I just wouldn't have done myself taking Barzal and not loading up on winger more. But it still seems like a really, really, really good team. I don't know, Matt. Any thoughts?
No, I think that makes sense.
It's like when is Barzal?
There's a few guys
There's
a few guys that you just sort of how they draft well enough to just trust that they're making sound decisions. So I'm not trying to splice apart roster construction as much as because we've talked about that so much versus I think the player takes. I'm inputting when I can, but
we'll get to Scott Craig. Now, Pasternak, Vasilevsky, Pedersen, Quinn Hughes mistake. Yeah, definitely didn't really want to jump on him at 44, I assume. Brad Marchand, Ward Sider, Jared McCann, Tarasenko. What? You got something?
Nope. That all checks out. Acknowledging Quinn Hughes obviously was a queued guy. You can still recover from one bad pick like that, and I think this team is perfectly
Yeah.
fine.
Guzmango, Kempe, Grubauer, Truba, Eriksson Ek, Patrick Kane, undraftable, but whatever. Mangiapane and Kako Kapanen. So, yeah, with Vasilevsky, I think that makes enough sense. Definitely the Hughes thing. I probably wouldn't have doubled down on Mort Seider at that point myself. Just like, all right, I guess Quinn Hughes is going to win the Norris, and just probably would have punted it back a bit, but whatever. I mean, what do you mean? It's like connecting. Who cares, right? Yeah, keep going.
Yep.
Pat ZDQ, who I'm not sure if they're in here or not, but they started with the Chuck and Marner, went to Darlene, Tuck, an interesting, fun little two-man there. Adam Fox, a bit earlier than I would have liked. Barkov, Jari, Nugent Hopkins, both of those two centers well after ADP. Anderson, Hagel, a little bit early, new contract ban, but, betting on that, that's fine. Mark Scheifele, Tom Wilson, my boy, not Matt's. Anders Lee, Cam Talbot, Ekblad, and Teravainen. I think that's a 3-7, 3-3.
The Barkov Kachuk stack, just
yeah,
a little bit of correlation, a little bit of this, that. It's good. Hey, great job, everyone. You're figuring it out if you're on stream with us. That's cool. Yeah, and we know this draft won't have a lot of randos because there were 11. The first person to join was in the chat, so it's very rare that someone will randomly have come in. But all right.
Lilac UF started with Rantanen, Igor, and Saros. Really, I guess you consider the bully goalie build. So Mikko, Shesterkin, Saros, Crosby, and Hintz. I'm personally not going to wait on Twitter that long myself.
2 goalie team, right? That's a 2 goalie team. Just scroll down.
Yeah. Okay. So I think it's a 8 winger 2 goalie is my believe. Yeah. So probably loaded up at center and goalie early, and then just went on a rampage with Line, Tippett, good upside guys for sure. Raquel, again, an upside guy. Pietrangelo, Werenski, first 2, again, a lot of upside plays. So I get it. Brian Rust, Lekanen, Perron, Zegras, Luke Hughes, and Luke Evangelista. So, no, that's 3. Yeah, so 3 centers, 2 goalies, 3 defensemen, maybe 4 centers.
Yeah, another reason the DraftKings interface is better. You can see the positional build on DK. You can't on the Underdog board. It's just guessing.
No, it's a beautiful little thing. You just gotta look at this and be like, that's 3, 8. Yeah, I got it.
Is that 7/16 or 8/16? Get out your little protractor and you draw some circles. Yeah, for sure.
It's okay.
Great job. Great job by Underdog.
I'll call Jason Robbins up. I'll get him on the line for you. You can suck him off. Okay. Jason Robertson goes with the first the 8th overall selection to whoever M. Jacobs is. Maybe you're in the chat. Tage Thompson, love it. 17 looks good. DeBrincat, Eric Carlson, Jack Eichel. So Tage and Jack Eichel, fun. Marchessault with Eichel, Brent Burns, Bobrovsky, first goalie. I don't know if I would have taken Kemper over him, but maybe. But it doesn't really matter. Kind of missed some of that goalie run, but loaded up, I think, pretty well at overall. Like I like the team so far. Zuccarello, Larkin, Verhage. I mean, that's the 4th center at that point. I know there's a lot of dipping with all those guys, like really taking advantage of the room you're in with all these centers, but seemed unnecessary. Eberle, Falk, Blake Wheeler, so didn't listen to me, and Marc-Andre Fleury. So probably a bit weak at goalie and a bit weak at goalie in general.
It's super enticing to take the best player available, which is a center, but I just don't think a center is all that often going to be the best player for your build if you have 3 already. You just got to know that centers are going to fall in some drafts, and you're just going to have to look gift horses in the mouth because they can't all score for you versus you need wing scores.
I think our next 3 drafters are all going to kind of take advantage of this person who took all the centers. You guys just hoovered up a lot of wingers. Starting with Ottawa Poker Rob, which is Matt, remind me again for the 900. Rink Rat. Yes. Ottawa, so start with Brady. Brady the Chuck would have absolutely been just in love if you could have let Stutzel slip to him, but alas, you're a terrible person. So Brady the Chuck and Timo Mayer was the first 2. Ottinger, Dougie Hamilton, get a correlation, which, as we mentioned, is a little bit fringe, but I think Timo's going to be on that first power play myself. Kreider, Pierre-Luc Dubois, Sebastian Aho, his first center, feels pretty good to me. He's probably number one center in this league. Vanacek is the second goalie in. Again, a little bit lower on him, but let's get a little bit higher on Schmid in general. Nico Kishier kind of building out more of that New Jersey. DeBrusque, I think that's a really good pick. He has a huge role now in Boston. Max Pacioretty, no thank you, especially at that pick. Josh Norris, I get it. I see the upside, but I think he would have slipped a little bit further. Vince Dunn, Cam Atkinson, not for me. Phoenix Copley, again, I'm higher on Talbot myself, and then D'Angelo. So some guys I'm not really high on, but overall I really like the construction. And I think there's a ton of upside, especially in the wing position. Those four in the first 64 picks seem really solid. Any thoughts? Anything?
My turn. No, I would have taken Copley had he been there, but because he wasn't, I just took the guy that I wanted for my third goalie. Kaprizov, Stützle, Forsberg to start. Kaprizov technically goes a couple spots earlier, so like I said, I normally take Kucherov there over Kachuk and Robertson, but Kaprizov falling, sure, I'll take it, whatever. Stützle, Forsberg, of course, just getting the wing because I didn't get an early center. Connor Bedard, I think I like taking him as my first center. Doesn't really bug me. Like, I get that he has a lot of downside, but guess what? A lot of teams are going to have a lot of downside with only 2 of 12 making it out. So it's a risk I'm willing to take. Evan Bouchard, of course, that's my guy. We talked about it. Olmark, falling past ADP. Don't like the pick, but there was a run on goalies. I would rather take him than get 30% Samsonov when I'm going to keep jamming in Samsonov and Kemper and Jari all season long. Following that up with Jacob Markstrom. Again, the guys that I like were gone. I didn't really want to reach on Kemper for the 98th time, it feels like. Puchnevich, I set up ahead of ADP to get Jordan Kyrou after ADP. I like that mini stack. Troy Terry, just taking wing value as it's there. Chris Letang, Jake Chikrin, Olivier Bjorkstrand, Elias Lindholm, Sam Montembeau is my third goalie because I missed all the goalies, and Jake Vrana to cap things off to get a 3-man St. Louis stack.
Okay, we're going to get the last two. Billy Jones NFL is in here making some good visualizations as well for the NHL and I think NFL's. I'm pretty sure I saw on his page. So follow him on Twitter if you want to throw that in the comments. We'll throw it up there. Started with the wing. Kucherov, Ovechkin, Svechnikov. I kind of thought, Matt, you were going to go with Svechnikov over Forsberg. I know you haven't been drafting him much, but maybe that was going to be the spot. Didn't do it. Yep, the all-Russian start there with Kucherov, Ovechkin, and Svechnikov as well. Gets Braden Point to pair with Kucherov. JT Miller, who, again, I'm very high on, and I think it's a really good pick at that spot. Hedman and Carlton, also some more correlation to mix in with Kucherov and Ovechkin. Korpisalo, Devin Levi, Arvidsson, Mertz Linkins. Kind of needed to start picking goalies. I think it was high time for it. Really no problem myself with any of them. I worry about Levi, but there's a lot of upside, and you kind of need that upside goalie at this point. I mean, the Sabres make the playoffs, and Levi's much better out the gate than I think most would expect or be able to project. He could definitely factor in quite a bit for you down the stretch. Nachos could be a number one center in Carolina, and you took Svechnikov, right. I was going to say, I think it correlates. Bunting as well to go in that mix. Lafreniere, Rasmus Anderson, and stealing Lucas Reichel down the line. And our final team before we get to just a couple last second things and we get out of here. Ace Liot or Ellie or AC Elliott.
How about AC Elliott?
Yeah. I don't know why Ace was like, I really wanted to say it. And then I realized that didn't make any sense. But you know what? Ace Liot 1944. That makes more sense to me now. Started with Jack Hughes, went to Cale Makar, just said, I see all the wingers, and I will raise you with Jack Hughes and Cale Makar. Went on a run himself, though, of Goudreau, Boldy, and Bratt. Personally, I'm not really in on Bratt at that spot, but I get the correlation and just whatever. Gustafsson, first goalie, big contract, whatever. I guess, why not? John Tavares, Tyler Bertuzzi, a bit early. Again, it's kind of picking some guys a bit early that I don't know if I would have taken where you took them, but the construction looks good. Billy Husso, Jamie Benn, certainly wasn't taking him there. Shabbat, Morgan Riley, Swayman, Logan Thompson. So that would mean that, he did go 4 goalies. Yeah, I mean, again, not my thing. Bo Horvat, and the last pick was what? Drouin? Yeah, so a lot of guys I wouldn't have taken.
Yeah, it's just
Overall,
really
I mean,
at wing. That's my concern. When you invest in other positions, like if you lose wing, you're just so screwed. So
another DJ Mitchell wins the draft. You hate to see it.
yeah.
The perfect drafter does exist, and it's DJ Sabers. Tough break.
Yes.
So yeah, one question we got, and I'm not exactly sure exactly what you meant by the question in general. I just want to start by saying that if the question has anything to do with taking two goalies on the same team, I'm a never. Matt's a never. So I would never think like, oh, whatever, I'll take Hill and Thompson. Like that's just never going to happen for me. As far as like you think of ambiguous backfields and you think of ambiguous goalie situations, I'm very much buying on them, especially when I go like I did and I took Sorokin and Thatcher Demko. At that point, I'm going to buy in on a guy like Schmid in the last pick. But I would have also bought in on Cam Talbot or maybe even Phoenix Copley for the first time. I like Talbot more, but I can be talked into it. I might buy in on Montembeau. I might buy in on Fleury or something. Just because a guy like Capo Kakinen, even though I think he is the starter, probably is going to see around 50 games for the Sharks, and that team might not win nearly enough for him to meet value regardless. I don't think he's going to be a bell cow. He's not John Gibson. He's not Carter Hart. He is probably the worst starting goalie in the league. So I'd rather, when I already have those super high, volume goalies, going with an ambiguous goalie rather than taking Capo Caco if I absolutely need it because I completely whiffed on goalies. Like I don't think Scott did a bad job because he had Vasilevsky and then he really waited. At that point, maybe you just say, what if the Sharks are not the worst team in the league? And Capo Kakinen is useful. Like I get that more than saying like, something else. Like, so it's situational of when I'm kind of buying in on an ambiguous goalie situation versus what I would perceive to be a bell cow. Matt, I've cut you off 34 times. Your turn.
Yeah, teams usually tip their hand in training camp in the preseason who their starter is going to be, or if they're going to be like a true 1A, 1B situation where they're splitting, 41 games if everything goes right. So that's when I'm tending to wait for these handcuff type goalies. Obviously, in a room like this, where players just keep on adding goalies so they don't miss. There's 36 goalies being drafted, sometimes a bit more, and there's only 32 starting jobs. So, like, yeah, some backups are going to be drafted. Of those four that are listed, I think I prefer Copley the best, just because we've seen him at least shoulder the load for more than half a season. Like Thompson certainly did, well for himself last year, but between Hill, Thompson, they just paid Aiden Hill, so I think it's his net until something happens, which of course things always happen to goalies, but there's very little chance I think that Thompson gets up to the 55 start mark. And Schmid and Campbell, those are both guys I like more than Logan Thompson, just given their path to playing a lot. But I don't love either. I'm probably not taking either until we get to training camp and see how things are going to unfold a bit more.
Yeah, I think Campbell's dead. So yeah, once training camp gets off, I mean, I don't have a ton of Talbot. I just have zero copy at this point. I'm really trying to avoid that situation in general as much as possible. But I have a few Talbots. I just think that you go out and sign a guy, and you went out and traded for a guy. You went out and traded for a guy first, Corpusalo, because you just knew Copley wasn't the guy, and then you go get Talbot. It's like, oh, now he's the guy. I don't know. I think that they're hesitant. That would be a kind word. So any more questions as we get this show wrapped up and get out of here from anyone else, or Matt, anything else you wanted to mention?
No, I am good.
Okay. So
any thank last you all guesses? For tuned in.
Any last guesses, Matt? You want to give your final guess? I'm gonna lock it right there where it's at.
Oh, your
yeah. How many? How many slow drafts?
28.
Okay, it's 19.
Wow.
19. So
misery.
19 picks.
Have fun.
19 picks to make right now. I got to get to that before bed. Can't auto draft. I did actually. I had my first DraftKings auto draft. I think actually second of the year. And I auto drafted Mark Andrews on a Kelsey team. So that'll be an interesting.
Oh shit.
Oh yeah. I must have. I was like, no. It had to have been an auto draft because I can't even think. It was Kelsey Pollard start too. I was so happy. And then I was like, oh boy. Don't know how much I love taking Andrews here. But now that the football talk has started, everyone is clicking frantically off this page because who cares about the NFL? So. Not me. We'll get out of here then. So Matt, I'm going to mute myself. and you can close it out.
Okay. Again, if you're listening or watching this on YouTube, be sure to check out the other medium which this is shared. If you want to go to YouTube from the podcast, there is a link to the YouTube in the podcast description. If you are watching on YouTube, be sure to check out the Morning Skate Pod on Apple, Spotify, any platform. Let me know if it's not on your platform of choice. We will have more of these weekly, as well as additional content such as the season long futures and DFS stuff when the time comes, and some training camp check-ins and whatnot, just to sort of to talk about things. Because yeah, if you guys want to know stuff, if you guys want to talk about stuff, give us ideas. We're happy to do it. We're not too worried about other fantasy hockey people stealing our content, because I don't think anyone's out there. If you are, though, link us in the Discord. Because I'm always interested to hear things like that. Which, by the way, if you want in the Discord, there's over 300 members, a lot of activity there every day. That's where I've shared all of my summarized, screen grabs. I know I screen shared my Excel earlier. I've made a thread where you can just click into it and see every single best ball data point that I've shared, and sort of written a description of each throughout the chat. So check out that thread if you want more best ball data content. Check out the Discord if you want to talk hockey with more insane people that are drafting drafts in August. And yeah, thank you all for listening. I'm at Fake Moves on Twitter. DJ's at DJ_Mitchell94, and we are at Morning Skate Pod. Thank you for listening. Have a good draft season, everyone, and we will see ya.